Now smile.
Don't tell me that.
Because you'll frown.
Okay, you're on.
Oh,
Good afternoon and welcome to AM News Network presents Summary Judgment. I'm Rachel Baird and I'm joined here by my co-host, Edward Peruta. We attempt to do a show every Saturday. We've been doing this since 2014. And welcome everybody. We're transmitting live from the American News Media Center in Connecticut. Good afternoon, Ed.
good afternoon, Rachel. Mm-hmm. And we've got JC in the wings. He's probably going to call in a while.
He has a lot to talk about.
He does have a lot to talk about.
He's called and prepped you on what he's going to talk about
Okay.
a couple times today already. I have something I want to talk about too, a new book that's out, but you go first.
Okay. I want to talk about this variant virus.
Okay.
We had the COVID-19. Now there's some D variant or variant D or something like that it's
I
called.
just poked my eye. I just poked my eye with my glasses. Did you see that?
No.
Okay, go ahead. I think it's called the Delta virus.
Delta virus.
Delta.
And the Delta virus is supposed to be more aggressive than the COVID-19. Now, you and I got the Pfizer vaccine.
2.
And Pfizer is now saying it's time for us to get a booster,
Oh, I didn't know that.
okay?
Okay.
And the CDC and whoever are saying no, or they're disagreeing with that.
Well, you know what I learned this week? I have a bit of a cold, and I sounded worse throughout the week. And I knew anybody that came in contact with me, the first thing they'd be thinking is I had COVID. So I went and got a COVID test so I could tell people I just had a COVID test and tested negative. And they're charging for them now. Remember when you used to be able to get in line and they were free, no questions asked, but now you have to pay. And I guess some insurance covers it and some doesn't.
Well, I'm concerned with how are we supposed to act? No one is really coming out and saying to us, you need to wear masks, you don't need to wear masks, you need to social distance, you don't need to social distance. Because I had to go get a chest x-ray yesterday. And I walked into Jefferson Radiology in Connecticut, and they said, oh, yeah, if you're going into a medical facility, you have to wear a mask.
Oh, but that makes sense. You know what? We probably should have always been doing that, come to think of it.
But the question is, you and I both tested positive for COVID
And back in December.
back in December.
Let's make that
You and
clear.
I both tested negative for COVID after we had it. You and I both went and got the 2 vaccines. You and I both received the card that says we've got the 2 vaccines. And there's a lot of people who have lifted the mask requirements. Restaurants, sporting events, whatever.
Well, in
lifted
Connecticut,
them.
they're considering for the new school year lifting it if the kids and the teachers are vaccinated and staff.
But we're not vaccinating kids under 12.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
You know, and
I guess so they'll have to wear a mask then.
you know, and I don't know. How do you know that the teacher's been vaccinated unless the school vaccinates them?
Yeah, but it's just a tension between how long are we going to be fearful versus how long are we going to not get back to our regular way of operation. No, everybody's on a different point on the spectrum on that.
Going to be a while. It's going to be a while. I
mean, I remember at the beginning of this, Dr. Fauci, he was predicting the end of the world pretty much, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And I think when that, and I know there were a lot of people that were impacted by COVID, but I think it's fair to say a lot of people weren't that impacted. It wasn't like the bubonic plague where everybody, and I think the people that weren't as impacted started to take it for granted that everything was okay. And people that were impacted were they're going to be cautious forever probably. So there's just, everybody kind of had a different experience, which makes it really difficult for us to be on the same page of how to go forward, right? It's like one person touched the elephant's ear, and another person touched the elephant's tail, and another person touched the elephant's hoof, and they're like, have three different impressions of what that thing was that they touched. So that's the problem.
Well, I have a problem with the lack of consistency because people don't know what they're supposed to be doing. You know, you walk up and you say, oh, you got to wear a mask, and at least they hand me one. You know, you require a mask, give me the mask. But it was just, why am I carrying this card? What does it mean? Oh, you can go in some places, but you can't go in others.
But there are, being human. Part of being human is the uncertainty of life. We're not gonna solve that, Ed. You know, and I think it's a sign of people that have probably had it relatively easy, that they expect there to be answers all the time and certainty, and there just isn't. So do you have any other concerns about COVID?
No.
Okay, so we're done with COVID?
Get done with COVID.
Okay, how do you think Joe Biden's doing?
Not good.
And why do you say that?
Well, I was opposed to I was opposed to becoming heavily involved in the Middle East in the beginning. But I supported our troops. But now we're pulling them out. And we're not pulling out all of the people who fought for us, fought alongside of us, you know, saved our lives in many situations. We're leaving them behind. But we're letting people walk across the southern border. Why? Because Iraq or Afghanistan doesn't have a border with the United States. They got to come all the way from Afghanistan to sneak in the New York harbor.
You know, I really like that point. That's an interesting point.
We are leaving behind people who, in fact, fought for this country.
Well,
with this country.
And, you know, we talked about this a little bit last week, and you couldn't recall who I was talking about. I really don't want to say his name, but we know somebody who's a translator, who knows languages. I can't remember which languages he knows, but he can speak English, and he can, I think, you know, he could communicate with, you know, with Iraqis, and he was a translator for the troops over there, and I know it proved difficult for, you know, it's people like that we have to worry about.
But you asked me several weeks ago about the name of a tribe in Cambodia and the Laotian border, Fongs or something like that. They fought with us in Vietnam, and we left them behind to the mercy of the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong. Now, what do you think the Taliban's going to do for people who collaborated with the United States? What do you think they're going to do to those people?
Well, there's things already being reported about that.
Did you say there's a phone call?
But that phone doesn't work. Remember last week it didn't work?
I got to call him?
Yeah, so we're going to call JC now.
Okay.
Get a report from Florida and what's going on in St. Johns County and St. Augustine.
Hey.
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, not much. Biden's a joke.
Oh, we were just talking about him. Why is he a joke?
I'm watching you on our big screen.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice.
He's a failure on everything. Okay? He's never done anything worth a hooch. Everything he's done's been a lie, just sheer garbage, you know. But what I do want to say is Sonny Borelli, United States Marine Corps, Sonny Borelli, Lake Havasu Senator for the state of Arizona.
Now, is he a state senator or a U.S. senator?
He's a state senator from Havasu.
You got to clarify that.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a state senator. And they went back and they re-looked at all the stuff that went on there. It looks like Maricopa County's getting ready to flip for Trump.
And he's either the minority whip or the majority whip. I think it might be the minority whip. So he's high level. He's high level
in the state
Senate.
in state government.
Right.
Yeah. And they went back and they looked at a bunch of things, found a bunch of inconsistencies, and it appears that that's getting ready to flip there. If that flips, well, then we go back to the exact same thing we talked about earlier. The courts never hearing the people, the courts deciding we're going to do what we want to do, not what the people want to do.
You know, did they set up a commission there to study this, or was there an investigation, or how did they come to any conclusions?
Bear with me.
There's a lot of news coming out at it.
Bear with me. Talk to Rachel. I'm just going to check something while we're here.
Okay.
Go ahead. Keep talking.
I mean, basically, they went back and they looked at all the votes, and they found there was a lot of miscalculations. And from there, you know, you just got to get into the news stories that are coming out about. But it's pretty big in Arizona, and the people of Arizona are really talking about it, and it looks like it's going to happen. You know,
I just can't imagine that this is, you know, bipartisan. I can't imagine that the Democrats are agreeing with whatever this count is and whatever action people like Mr. Borelli want to take.
They're not.
Right.
They couldn't stop them. You know, and it's going to be interesting. I can't wait to see what the next couple of days has concerning it. As far as Dr. Fauci goes, he's a scam. He's a joke. Okay, Fauci should be drug out and charged with treason in the town square. He should live in a cell in the middle of town square that everybody in the world can go by there and just look at him any day they want to and see that piece of trash is locked up in a prison where he belongs. Okay, Fauci was politicalized, and that's exactly what's being showed on all his emails. Why do you think we're not seeing much of Fauci right now? Is because Fauci's running and hiding. He's not playing the Kumu tour I love you tour right now. I love me tour, excuse me, the Kumu I love me tour.
Well, I think we can all look at each other and, you know, make you know, comment on our impressions about what we see about a person, but I'm not sure that I'm not sure. Yeah, I think just as we don't want people to make snap decisions based on very little information about us, I think we should give other people the same courtesy. I do not know enough about his life, which my understanding is he has, you know, he served his country in a very high level, you know, up to all this. I think it's easy when you get into a situation with the acrimony between the Republicans and the Democrats that was going on when this came up, especially with Trump in office. I think it's hard to navigate that. I think it'd be hard for anybody to navigate that. And, you know, he's not a politician, and he was put in a situation that could have been very tough. And I just don't, you know, number one, he's a fellow American. And
they're lying to us, by the way.
Yeah, I just don't know if you have proof of that. You know, I think that might be tough to prove. So
have you seen emails?
Yeah.
JC, we haven't read his emails.
Yeah.
Well, his emails say he's a liar.
Okay.
Well,
okay, there's a lot of his emails that have come out now, and I'm 100% confirmed that there's nothing that man could say or do that I would ever trust or believe.
But JC, that's with every politician. That's
well,
with them all.
He's not even a politician.
He's not a politician.
Bureaucrats and politicians.
I'm convinced that if anybody's emails were exposed, that there could arise negative commentary about most everybody if their emails were put out there for review. I'm convinced of that.
You know,
Dr. Carlson.
I maintain that the Clinton administration had email issues.
Yes.
About Whitewater, the they were doing something.
Mm-hmm.
The Blackberries.
What was it?
Her BlackBerry, her.
No, yeah, but there was a something going on business-wise that she was involved in, and all of a sudden the emails are gone. And you think that she learned a lesson not to use a communication device to talk shit about anything. But here we come. We asked for her emails, and they're gone.
Well, it's like I was watching 60 Minutes from Australia, and they're talking about a Ponzi scheme over there and how everybody lost their money. And this is kind of recent, and I'm thinking, didn't they watch the news about Bernie Madoff? I mean, I don't get said it. How could anybody fall for that after Bernie Madoff? But we never seem to learn, and that goes with emails too. I don't know if you heard about just this past week. Somebody was interviewing an employer was interviewing a young woman for a job, and after she left, he sent an email. He thought to his wife that said, she's not very cute. But he sent it to the girl instead. He made a mistake and put her email in instead of his wife's. And those people are taking tremendous grief right now. I'm not sure how much. I mean, people are threatening to kill him, for God's sakes. On the scale of things that people do, that's not good. But on the other hand, they didn't murder somebody or rob a bank. But people, I don't think will ever learn that you can't communicate certain things in emails. I think we're all guilty of that. So,
and it's been going on for ages.
Yeah.
And in today's world, with everything being monitored the way it is, you can't even talk face to face anymore because there's something listening somewhere.
Very, very true. I mean,
JC, there's people in my life that know that I have a very dear friend in Florida named Chris Reynolds. And Chris Reynolds, I met him the first night in boot camp. And I've been to his house, I've been to his home, I've shared meals with him. He's like my brother in Florida. And this is how I met him. He was fit to be tied. He was going crazy. And, like they have double bunks, and I was the third bunk from the rear door, and there was one, and he was next to the door, and he was just going fucking nuts. I said, what's the matter? He said, oh my God. I put the 2 letters in the wrong envelopes to the girls, to my girlfriends. I had 2 girlfriends. I put Jane's and Sue's and Sue's and Jane's. I said, this is not going to end up good. But that was the screw up with paper. He wrote two letters, and he didn't seal them as soon as he wrote them, and then he decided to put them in envelopes and mail them. Yeah, so it's been going on for ages.
Yeah, I guess certain private things, especially if you're not forthcoming, they could come out any way. But
can you imagine how many scribes lost their heads because of the fucking tablets they made?
Well, even back in the medieval days, right? The queen would write a letter, and the courier was supposed to take it like miles and miles away, but it would be intercepted, or somebody would open it,
and they lose their head.
And there you go. Yeah, you're done. So I don't know what the solution is. It's just life. But I don't know, to call somebody a piece of trash and to do all that when you haven't walked a mile in his shoes.
But the problem is that when you look at the date of his emails and you compare them to the things he was saying, and you're going down the list, and you have you find that he was two-facing us from the very beginning. He was saying this to Wuha. He was saying this to us. He was saying this to the Democrats. He was saying this to us. Everything about him has been political and a lie, including the money that's invested in and around him in this lab. He's lied to us about that too. And he's refusing to now answer the questions about Wuhan and his involvement there.
Well,
and that's not his job, no more than it was Bill Gore's job to plead the Fifth of the U.S. Senate concerning Ruby Ridge. When those people pull that type of shit, they should be fired immediately.
Okay, well that's your opinion. I gotta admit, I don't know enough about it to have that strong opinion. Either way.
And other than that, I would love to tip my cowboy hat to Sonny Borelli, and I wish him the best of luck in his endeavors. And if what they're showing in Arizona holds to be true, it's time we the people start taking control of the courts again versus the government controlling the courts, because they are just allowing garbage to happen to we the people, and it's not fair. I mean, look at our case. We had a solid case. We got a solid case. But they would not let it be heard because it was going to hurt the government and their objectives. Well, that was the same thing with these trials that were shot down concerning the elections. We've got 75 million people think we needed to hear a trial on this. But somebody in the government went, nope, we're not going to let the people hear this. And that's not fair to us.
I agree.
Folks, you have a nice day. I hope it's beautiful up there. I miss both of you very, very much and can't wait to hug you guys again someday.
It's been a while since
We'll
you've been
talk
up
to you,
here.
JC.
See you
Okay.
later. Bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
You know, he reminded me of something when he was talking. He told us about the Sonny Borelli situation this morning, and I had not been aware of it. And I looked into it. Obviously, I still don't know that much about it, but I'm just wondering if it's being reported the same, for example, on CNN as it's being reported on Fox. I'm just wondering if everybody's looking at it like it's a big deal and something's really going to come of it. Because we've heard a lot of those things in the past couple years where something's really big, but that's because people want to see it that way who hold certain positions where it really kind of fizzles out to nothing. So again, I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but I can't imagine that there's going to be any effect on the current presidency from that situation.
Well, we have to keep doing what we're doing, because the minute we stop talking, other people stop talking or don't start talking, and that's the only way we're going to get through this. I'll give you an example. What the hell happened in Miami with that condominium complex coming down? There's all kinds of stuff coming out now about the association only had 10% of the money necessary, or no, maybe it was the government. The state of Florida collects condo fees for condos. There's a licensing fee or some kind of fee, and I guess the state collects the money. 90% of the money went into the general fund. It didn't go into going back and fixing condos. You know.
Because people are just hoping that it never happens.
Yeah. Yeah. It's stupid, but that is the problem. I live in a situation where I can't talk freely without upsetting somebody. And I'm tired of, I don't want to hear it. What'd you write down?
Oh, just 2 notes, because you know how I forget things when you're talking.
Always.
I wanted to get back. We were talking about something, and it brought up in my mind this attorney, Avenatti, who represented
Yes.
Stormy Daniels, and I
Yes.
think he just got sentenced to 2.5 years
Yep.
in jail. And it kind of goes back to what I was talking about, how CNN will represent things differently than Fox. And Avenatti is a good example. Fox couldn't stand him because he was attacking President Trump through
Right.
Stormy Daniels, right?
Right.
So he was enemy number one to Fox for a certain period of time, whereas CNN loved him, and they were talking about, somebody did a count, he gave like 177 appearances or interviews on CNN during his what they call 15 minutes of fame, right?
Yeah.
And then they had pictures of him out in the Hamptons partying it up with CNN people, right? So they were willing to accept him, no questions asked, simply because he supported a position that they wanted to push. Okay, so if somebody doesn't support your position, all of a sudden they become trash. But if they do support your position, even if they're criminals, then you accept them and put them out there as people who have some sort of authority. You know, I think a lot of my reticence in accepting just like, oh, I don't like this email that came out about Fauci, this and that, and just getting just 100% one-way impression of it is, you know, in trials, there is so much relevant evidence, and by relevant, I mean evidence that could make a difference to people on the jury, but there are motions and different rules of evidence that keep a lot of things out of court when there's a case, because they don't want, you know, it's not, in other words, if somebody's accused of robbery They may not want a prior record of 10 robberies to come in, because then the jury will say, well, he's done 10 before. He probably did this one, and they won't hold the state to the same standard of proof for that robbery. Now, the prior robberies can come in for different reasons. If they were all committed in some sort of the same fashion as this one, the same modus operandi, then that could be an exception. Then they could come in. But basically, there's a lot of evidence that's kept out because it's not seen as contributing to a decision about whether the person did the crime or not. But it really could sway people if they heard about it, right? And so I look at opinions like that. We don't have all the information. There's no way we can have all the information. So I'm always so hesitant to just come to a full black or full white decision about something, because there's always gray areas. For example, what if we found out that Dr. Fauci had, saved somebody's life, and put his own life at risk 10 or 20 years ago? I don't know whether he did or not, but what if we found out that? Wouldn't our position kind of change about, do you know what I'm saying? I just can't look at things as all one way or another.
I know. No, listen, while you were talking.
You were reading your phone, I know.
I know, because I wanted to see something.
Yeah.
I openly admit I want to shack up with Nancy Pelosi. I want to sleep in her bed. I want to touch her warm body. And I want her to whisper in my ear. Because this is what her husband did. Her husband bet $11 million on some tech stock before a vote. And he had bet millions on Alphabet, that big, before it went public. So I Googled Pelosi's husband stocks. Now, Bloomberg says Pelosi's husband tech stock spotlights the law, on trying to change the law. And then, hold on, how do you make this do this? Pelosi's, this is New York Post, mentions it, okay? Fortune magazine mentions it. The Hill mentions it. Market Holder Insider mentions it. Forbes mentions it.
So what we're talking about is insider trading, right? He had information that was not generally available to the public, and he used it to his advantage to make money in the stock market. Is that what we're talking about?
Right. Well, now here it says
Did I get
6.
that right?
Here it says 6. Let me read it to make sure I get it right.
Uh-huh.
Paul Pelosi bets up to $6 million on big tech before powerful House committee passes sweeping antitrust measures. Okay? So he knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, but if it was a bill that was going to be voted on, wouldn't that be publicly available? If
the federal government was about to enact a law that said apples are going to cost $25 each, and I know that right now they're selling for $5, I'm going to buy up all the apple orchards.
Right.
And then say, okay, you can take them for $25. Okay? In other words, he's sleeping with the Speaker of the House.
Yeah, but if there's a law, the puppy got something. But if there's a law, it's a stretch towel. They can't. Well, you got up before. Can't you get up now to get that away from her? But my point.
Shame.
Yeah, okay.
Shame.
But my point is that wouldn't everybody know that there's going to be a vote in the House tomorrow on whether Apple should go from $5 to $25? That's not really insider trading, is it?
Okay, let me put it this way. The last name has a lot to do with whether or not you can buy $6 or $11 million worth of stock.
I mean, she might know kind of whether it's probably going to pass or not, though, because
she knows the votes.
Yeah.
She knows the votes.
So, yeah, that's a problem then.
She knows the votes, and she says, look, buy it.
Because, let me tell you, it was a close vote, but I just got off the phone with so-and-so, and I said, if you vote for this, then I'll do this, so she's in. So, yeah, go ahead and do it. Yeah, you're right. That's not even a close call.
This has been going on for years and years and years. In other words, I want to find one person who is either in the House of Representatives or the Senate who isn't making money hand over foot somehow. And they're public employees. How do you do that? I'm sorry, but I sit here talking into a camera on YouTube, okay? And if you don't catch something on the right channel at the right time, you don't know what happened. You'd have to keep your nose in the internet 24/7.
Which, some people do. With all the
Some people
apps
subscribe
available.
to people who do because they pass along the information that they learn.
But then the algorithm pegs you along certain opinions, and then they just kind of feed you information that has those same opinions, so people kind of end up living in bubbles now. The technology, rather than bringing us together, is all making us into little separate segments without us knowing it. We just think everybody else possibly agrees with us, right? I know. So I was reading a magazine this week, the DC Bar magazine, which usually doesn't have a whole lot of things that are interesting in it. But there is a new book that came out that was reviewed in the magazine. And the reason why I wanted to mention it is because the title of the book is Why the Innocent Plead Guilty and the Guilty Go Free, and other paradoxes of our broken legal system. And you might say, well, oh my God, aren't there a million books out there like that? Don't we talk about things like that? Well,
Who wrote it?
yes. Who wrote it? Like when I have clients and they say, oh, should I get a letter of recommendation from somebody or letter of reference? I say, yes, of course. But in the first paragraph, who's ever writing that letter needs to say who they are, and present it in the best light, obviously, because something may be said, but it makes a lot of difference who says it a lot of the time, right? And so the person who said this is Jed S. Rakoff, Rakoff, and he was a federal judge for many years. He's actually retired now, but he was a prosecutor, a criminal defense lawyer, and a federal trial judge in New York, in the Southern District in New York. So I would think that he has a lot of credibility when he says something like this. Now, sometimes people say things like this, right, Ed? And it's because maybe they had to retire early or they were terminated. And then you have to kind of say, well, were they disgruntled? And I guess maybe with Mr. Rakoff or Judge Rakoff, we'd have to ask the same question. But you read his book, and that'll give you a lot of ideas about, his tone and his take on things and how he talks about things. But it talks here about the book's chapters on mass incarceration, dubious forensic evidence, coercive pleading in criminal cases, and the critical role of money in the justice system. And according to the reviewer, Ronald Goldfarb, there's plenty of evidence to support Judge Rakoff's opinions. And we've talked about coercive pleading in criminal cases. Very, very few criminal cases go to trial. Very few, because most of them are pled out. People can't afford to go the whole way to trial. When I write letters to my clients, I include in there that just because you're innocent doesn't mean that if you go to trial, you will be found not guilty, and you need to consider that. So the book is called, again, Why the Innocent Plead Guilty and the Guilty Go Free. It's actually on Audible, so
I'll tell you what,
I got it on there.
I'll tell you what makes me... Oh, she just peed.
Oh, damn. Why did you have to say that to everybody? She's doing so good.
She is.
In her potty training.
I know.
And the show, we weren't watching her like we should.
I know.
Damn.
That's all right. Listen.
I swear, we've had her 2 months. She's done that here only a couple times.
Right.
She's really good.
She is.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what I was saying on that topic. The innocent plead guilty and the guilty go free. Okay? The courts do not want someone going to trial. The courts themselves do not want trials.
Well, it clogs the system up, number one.
But can you agree? The courts do not want trials.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
They do
Trials
not-
are
they-
looked at as a burden. Attorneys that regularly want trials are looked at as not cooperative. Yeah, definitely. They don't want trials.
And when they don't want trials, they do everything in their power to prevent trials.
Yeah, I mean, in civil cases, in federal and state courts, it's called a motion for summary judgment, and that's what our show's called, where the defendant will say that the plaintiff can't prove anything, and a reasonable jury could never find in favor of the plaintiff. Therefore, judge, you just need to get rid of this case because you can't let a jury go.
It's a waste of time.
It's a waste of time, and that happens a lot.
But
Judges are rated by their docket. The quicker they get rid of their docket and push cases through the system, the better opinion
with less complaints.
their employer has
Low
of them.
complaints and fast dockets.
I'm not even sure they care about the complaints that much.
But
to
what
be
I'm,
honest.
I think that what I'm saying is, you, it's so piled against you because they don't want you. They don't want the story told.
Can I give an example? I'm going to give a hypothetical example. Somebody with absolutely no criminal record who has a lot of good features about them is involved in a road rage incident, and that person's legally carrying a firearm. Never takes the firearm out. They're just legally carrying it with a permit. And somebody else is involved in the road rage incident, and the police come and they arrest the person who is legally carrying because he has a gun, and the other person says this person pointed the gun at me. Okay? Now, if you look into, which all criminal defense attorneys should, the lifestyle of the person reporting the incident, and you find out that this person has been involved in 3 similar incidents in the past, exactly the same scenario,
All I have to do is say he took his gun out.
where they have called the police and reported another person for engaging in activities, and not only that, but they have a dog, and when the police have come to their house to investigate, they have used the dog in a certain way. In other words, this person has some credibility issues. Let's just put it that way. Credibility issues. And you FOI all the documents supporting those credibility issues. You don't just walk into the prosecutor and say, oh, yeah, the complainant's a bad guy. He did this and that. No, you don't do that. You prepare, and you get all the reports, and you got them. And you got your letters of recommendation stuff too, but I know that's kind of fluffy, whatever. But you got the hard evidence this person doesn't have credibility. And the prosecutor says to you that they don't even want to take the papers. They don't even want to look at them. They don't care. Let's just continue it and put it on the pretrial list. Now, is that justice? That's a prosecutor that doesn't care about justice. And you think in this day and age where the police are such a focus, you know who needs to be a focus? And I've been saying this for years. It's almost like, and I'm sorry to go off, but you seem like you're kind of occupied today anyway with some other things, so I'll just go off. It's like when I've said to you, when you go in Dunkin' Donuts and for some reason service is bad. Right now it's because of a labor shortage. And you're going to complain to the person working on the line at Dunkin' Donuts. What is the purpose of that? There's absolutely no purpose to that, because when you have a complaint, it comes down from above. It always comes down from above. Maybe they shouldn't have hired that person. But no matter what the reason, it comes down from above. Same thing with police. The police act that way because they get away with acting that way. And who lets them get away with acting that way? Prosecutors. Prosecutors who are apologists for police officers let police officers get away. And you know what? Black Lives Matter and all this stuff that you see hasn't made one difference in the courts about how prosecutors treat cases. Prosecutors are still of the mindset that police officers can do no wrong. If they write a report, there's not a single misrepresentation in it. If you as a defense attorney say anything negative about the investigation, then you're the problem, not the police officer. And let's go to the next line up, the judges. The judges look at the prosecutors and take what they say as the sacred gospel. They ask no questions. They can see a police officer is caught in a lie on the stand, and they sit there like it makes absolutely no difference to them. They sit there and they see a prosecutor ask questions, and they know that prosecutor knows the cop is lying. The judge knows the cop is lying. Everybody in the courtroom knows the cop is lying, and nobody does anything.
Nobody calls him out on it.
Nobody calls him out on it. And if a defense attorney brings it up, oh, well, you know, just defending their piece of shit there and trying to pick on the poor police officer. Why isn't anybody talking about this? Everybody picks on the police.
Rachel?
The police are only like they are because prosecutors and judges have allowed them to be that way.
We are talking about it.
And it's not going to change.
But we are talking about it.
It's not going to change.
More people have to talk
Nothing
about
about policing is going to change. The only thing that's going to change about policing is that people aren't going to be police. People just won't be police, that's all. That's the only thing that's going to change. But their conduct's not going to change. Because prosecutors, like the one I'm talking about in this hypothetical situation, they don't care about justice. Injustice in the courts.
How many times have I said to you, I think the first time I saw it was probably in Middletown when that prosecutor would come into the courtroom and she'd have files of defendants, you know, that she's prosecuting. And she puts them down. And I said, look, when it comes in, you come into the courtroom, you speak to a prosecutor, and you're arraigned. Okay? And the prosecutor looks at the file. And you either get a deal or it goes in that pile over there. And they separate the pile. But the pile's still this big when they walk out of the courtroom. They don't look again at that file until they're getting ready to go to trial. They don't look at it. They don't open it. They don't see shit other than to write on it. What's that continuation date, Your Honor?
The continuance.
Here, let me write it down here on the file folder.
I got to tell you, the biggest issue in court is the continuance date. When is counsel available next? You know, the continuance. Oh, we can't do that, Madam Clerk. Okay, let's look at another date. Well, spend freaking 10 minutes discussing a date rather than looking at documents that impact the strength of the state's case, which they should consider because they're there to represent the people and not protect police officers.
I cannot wait to watch some federal trials at the federal level. And then someday, Connecticut will have video cameras in the courts. Someday you're going to be able to click on the internet and you're going to be able to watch the court proceedings in New Britain. But the last thing that the court will ever allow the public to see in mass by video is arraignment time. Or, you know, when I sit here, I've got a speeding ticket. I'm charged with doing 93 and a 55. Okay? And I'm going to plead not guilty. Do I know I was doing more than 55? Yes. Was I doing 93? Absolutely. Trooper Timko, you're probably retired now. But, you know, so I go to court. And I sit there as close as I can to when they call you up to talk to the prosecutor at the table about your case. And I'm hearing fucking deals being made. Okay, look, I'll tell you what. Make a donation to the Humane Society, $100 donation. Bring me back the receipt, and I'll dismiss the charge. Why don't you plead guilty to violation of a stop sign? But, Your Honor, our prosecutor, I was on the interstate. There are no stop signs. plead guilty to violating a stop sign, and I'll reduce the fine to $10. All of these deals are going on. And when I walk up, they go like this, and you're going to be pleading guilty today, Mr. Peruta? So I said to him, I said, well, let me ask you a question. If I plead guilty, are you going to give me a deal on the fine? Nope, you're paying the maximum fine. I said, so if I plead not guilty and go to trial, can you charge me any more? And they said, no. I said, well, fuck it, work for your money. We're going to trial. That's it. We're going to trial. It's not going to cost me any more than, at the time, it was $255. It's okay, so we'll go to trial. I'll tell my story.
So why was everybody else getting a deal and you weren't?
Because I had just gotten a not guilty in the Enfield court a month before. I'm the only guy that had a jury trial in Middletown in 1 month, a jury trial in Enfield the next month, and I was having a speeding ticket in Rockville the month after that.
You need to stay out of trouble, Ed.
They kind of knew who I was, but it was hilarious. They knew who I was, I knew who they were, and I didn't give three shits. But I'm sitting there saying, because I said to him, then I asked for the jury trial. And they always sit there and say, well, it's going to be, I said, stop. I have a habit of calling up court operations, and I ask them how many trials have taken place in this courthouse in the last 12 months. 3. You got a list of 50 people on the trial docket, and you've only had 3 trials in this courthouse in the last 12 months. Something is wrong. And then you walk in at 1:30 in the afternoon, and between 1:30 and 5, the courtrooms are empty. There's nobody in them. And then you find out that there's some minority attorney who's prominent, and he gets to walk into the courthouse at 4:30 in the afternoon when nobody's around and has his case heard by the judge, and he gets to walk out the door. You tell me what's wrong. You tell me what's wrong with the courts. And it hasn't changed, Rachel. It has not changed. But you're never going to be able to have a camera and have the microphones when it goes like this. Miss Beard, you're charged with reckless driving. If you're willing to pay a parking ticket because you parked after you drove, I'll dismiss the charge, or I'll null you the charge. Just give a donation to... I wanted to set up a nonprofit and put a kiosk at the New Britain Courthouse so that they could come out, give me the money, and go back in with my receipt. They were giving it to the Police Athletic League on the first floor in the police department. So they go down, pay the $100, and come back up, give it the case dismissed.
Well, they fixed that situation.
They did, because of that case in New Britain.
Yeah, it used to be in Connecticut that you could make a charitable contribution and, get your case dropped. And prosecutors were favoring certain charities over others or whatever. And now you can still do that, but it all goes to a fund. Yeah, it all goes to a fund. I don't know what they do with the money from the fund, but the prosecutor doesn't have to pay.
I'll tell you exactly what they do with the money, because the victims fund is based in an office, or was based in an office in Plainville, Connecticut. And I walked in and I said to them, under FOI, I want the name of every individual who's made a donation to your office and the amount that they've paid and what court it came out of. Okay? They fought me. And they had to release on CD. You should read the names of the people that can afford to just pay for it and it's gone. But that's a public record. To have everybody who's paid to get out of their tickets.
And I don't know which is better, states that elect judges or states like Connecticut that appoint judges who have to go through a nomination process and have it approved by the legislature. And then they have to, here in Connecticut, every 8 years, they're up for renomination. And most of the time it's automatic. It's very rare that somebody doesn't get renominated. But, last week we were talking about the case down in Texas of Texaco and Pennzoil, where there was the big, back in the 70s or 80s, fight over Getty Oil. And Joe Jamil was a prominent attorney, and a lot of people call him the most successful attorney of all time. He was basically a billionaire back in the 80s and 90s. How did he do it, Well, down there in Texas, they vote in judges. And he contributed so much money to that judge's election, who sat on the bench in that trial. Right? And Texaco brought down its attorneys. I mean, they made a huge mistake. They brought down their attorneys from a New York law firm to a Texas state court trial. Well, you can imagine how that went,
Oh, the
right?
jury looked at those suits walking in the door.
It went terrible. We'll just
Yep.
put it that way. But yeah, and they have no problem with that in Texas, paying judges who you appear in front of. So wealthy attorneys are going to be able to pay off more judges than just your, run-of-the-mill attorney who's
The
struggling.
system is fucked up. It is so screwed up you can't even imagine. I mean, I'll give you an example. The state of Connecticut finally decided to give audio files to the public. You pay $20
Yeah.
for an audio file, whether it's 2 minutes or 2 hours.
Well, it's that day in court for that proceeding, so it could be 8 hours or
There
2
could be
minutes.
20 proceedings in an hour. One of them costs $20. You can't buy the day.
No, can't buy the day.
So listen to this. The state, in their infinite wisdom, decides to give those audio files to people on CDs, not DVDs, CDs. And so Rachel says, Ed, can you go down to the court operations? It's kind of right near us. Can you go down there and pick up? I got 2 CDs, 3 hearings, 2 CDs. I said, okay. So I go down and I come back with a CD. And what does Rachel ask me? Ed, do you have a CD? And when I went and bought a new laptop, I said, do they come with CDs anymore? No, they
Players,
don't.
CD players.
See, no, in the laptop it plays a CD. They don't make them anymore. I said, and now they're getting rid of the SD cards. So why couldn't the state of Connecticut get a contract to get the little thumb drives that are like 2 gigs? And they're dirt cheap, and if the state buys them, they're probably pennies on the dollar.
Just to upload it and give
And
people access
give people
to
the
it.
serial number to download it.
Yes, yeah.
But I'm saying,
It's so backward.
I'm saying, they're giving us technology that's on the way out the door, and it's amazing because it's just amazing. That's all.
So yeah, back to this article. It confirms what we were kind of talking about. His chapter on plea bargaining shows that 97% of criminal cases are resolved by plea, meaning judges and juries have little role in the highly questionable, if not unconstitutional, process. It's true. Sometimes judges in these courts, where a lot of cases they're just kind of sitting up there, like the prosecutor's running it.
Referee.
Right. Like, not even a
Yeah,
referee.
the marshal told you to put your sit in the seat or leave. I got it, Your Honor. I don't want to hear it. Just get out.
Yeah. I mean, I'll talk more about it after I listen to it, but basically it does talk about being able to afford lawyers, and I think a lot of people don't understand that. They believe somehow that this is America, and you have a right to an attorney, and because you have a right to an attorney, that attorney will take all measures necessary to represent you. But the problem is the government doesn't pay the attorneys, and so the attorney has no way to make money but to get it from you. And if you don't have the money, then the attorney can't do the work because everybody's familiar. I'll take Dunkin' Donuts again. If you go to work at Dunkin' Donuts and you work there for 8 hours and you make $10 an hour, at the end of the day, you expect $80. You don't want the employer to say, well, we really needed somebody to serve coffee today, but I don't have the money, so I can't pay you to serve coffee. But people really needed coffee.
I can't pay you for serving my coffee today.
Right. Well, it's the same with attorneys. If people don't have money to pay them, the attorney can't do the work without whatever. So the people that can pay the attorney and the attorney can do the work because they're getting paid, they definitely get more. They definitely get more legal representation. It's just a fact of life. The people find very disconcerting when they're not familiar with the court system and they become involved in the court system.
They're naive. Everybody's starting to become naive. They just walk along. Doesn't bother me. Doesn't affect me. Yeah.
Well, but we can't, know everything, and if you're not affected by the court system, there's no reason to know all about it. So, anything else for this weekend?
No, I think we've got about 4.5 minutes left out of the hour, but we can always load something on the front of this, like an opening.
And we got a
But,
puppy that we need to pay attention
We
to.
do.
Yeah.
So listen.
Oh my God! Now she is
No,
going
now she's
after
tearing
the
up. Yep.
threaded rug.
So
But
listen.
everybody have a
Adios.
good
See you
week.
next week. We don't know exactly what time, but we'll be here.
Well, we
Talk to you
can't
later.
guarantee that
Okay.
either.